Why was everyone ignoring her at the briefing table? The Chinook's rotors had barely stopped spinning when the dust storm it kicked up began to settle. Staff Sergeant Elena Vasquez stepped down onto the landing pad at forward operating base. Castro, her boots planting with the precision of someone who had rehearsed every move before she made it. The Afghan sun was punishing, baking the sand into something that felt almost metallic underfoot. Yet her AQ uniform remained sharp, every crease pressed like she'd just walked out of inspection. The polish on her boots caught the light like black glass. The gear strapped to her frame looked like it had been assembled straight from a supply catalog, untouched. Untested, her duffel rode casually on one shoulder, the other free to let her hand sweep her surroundings with quiet, assessing glances. Corporal Danny Jenkins saw her first. He was elbow-deep in the hood of a Humvee when the new arrival caught his eye. He nudged Private Martinez with a grease-stained elbow. "Check it out. Fresh meat from headquarters?" Martinez squinted into the sun. "Damn. She looks like she just stepped off a recruiting poster. $20 says she cries before the week's out." The rumor spread before she even made it to the command tent. Soldiers found excuses to be nearby, tightening straps that didn't need tightening, reviewing gear they'd already checked twice. The air held that quiet hum of boredom being replaced by curiosity inside the tent. Lieutenant Hayes looked up from a map just long enough to register her presence. 26 years old, sharp-featured, and wearing the kind of authority that came from graduating near the top of his class at West Point, not from surviving a battlefield. He had 4 months in country, 4 months of real war. And he wore them like they made him untouchable. Vasquez, right? Intelligence liaison from Bagram. She stood at attention. "Yes, sir. Reporting as ordered." His eyes swept her gear, her posture, the spotless edges of her uniform. The corner of his mouth curled. "Let me guess. You've been pushing papers, analyzing satellite photos while the rest of us do the heavy lifting." "Yes, sir," she answered evenly. "Well, this isn't headquarters. Out here, we deal with reality, not PowerPoint presentations. Think you can handle that?" The question dripped condescension. Laughter rippled through the tent. She didn't flinch. "I'll do my best, sir." The hazing began before the day was out, over chow. Jenkins took exaggerated care to demonstrate how to hold an M4 properly, speaking in slow, patronizing tones as though she'd never seen one before. "This is the business end. It makes loud noises and everything." Laughter burst from the tables. Elena kept eating, each bite deliberate, her gaze steady but distant, as if the words never touched her. That night came the mission briefing. Hayes stood at the head of the table, laser pointer tracing their route. The plan was to sweep through the village of Kalachinal, checking for weapons caches and gathering intel on insurgent activity. It was textbook perfect. If you ignored the fact it ran through a narrow valley flanked by elevated terrain. She raised her hand. "Sir, if I may." "Save it, Sergeant." Hayes cut in. "This isn't a theoretical exercise. We don't need input from someone whose hardest day was deciding which font to use in a report." Laughter again. Williams, the squad's wall of muscle, leaned back in his chair. "Maybe she can analyze them to death." LT, death by spreadsheet. She forced her hands to stay loose. In her lap, "Understood, sir. I was just noting the terrain might not match your textbook." This is Afghanistan. The enemy doesn't follow neat little diagrams. Hayes scanned the room, feeding off their amusement. "This is why I hate getting desk jockeys. They think they understand combat because they've read about it." The meeting ended. Soldiers filed out in 2s and 3s. Still chuckling, Elena stayed behind, staring at the map. She knew that valley, even without having set foot in it. A perfect kill zone. Any insurgent with half a brain would set up along those ridges and wait, back in the barracks. She found a paper sign taped to her footlocker. Property of rear echelon mother. She peeled it off without comment, folding it neatly into her gear bag. The others traded war stories, sleeves pushed back to show scars they wore like badges. Elena lay still on her cot, eyes tracing the tense ceiling seams in the dark. Slowly, she rolled her sleeve back. Her fingertips found them, the faint raised lines hidden beneath fabric and discipline. 47 small marks, neat, ordered, each one a memory she'd tried to keep buried. Tomorrow they'd walk straight into an ambush. She could stop it, but to do that, she'd have to tear the mask off and let them see what she really was. When sleep came, it wasn't rest. It was shadows, 47 ghosts, crowding the edges of her mind. The morning patrol rolled out under a pale sun, the convoy's engines blending into the wind through the valley. Elena sat in the lead Humvee, posture perfect, weapon held just so, the way manuals told you to. But no one in real combat actually did. Jenkins smirked down from the gunners. Hatch, first time outside the wire? Paper soldier. Don't worry, we'll keep you safe. Just don't shoot one of us. She didn't answer. Her eyes were scanning. Every ridge and shadow filed away in a mental map. Then she saw it. Glint of metal from the left ridge. 400 meters out. The sun-kissing glass just once before it vanished. Sir, she leaned forward. Possible contact. Left ridge. The radio erupted with Williams' voice before she could finish. Contact rear. The valley exploded. RPG trails stitched across the open ground. The first rocket smashing into the dirt 20 meters ahead. Haze froze. 3 seconds. Long enough for fire to bloom from every ridge. Muzzle flashes. The sharp crack of a Dragunov. The Humvees. Rear windshield webbed under a sniper's round. Private Chun, at the wheel, slumped bleeding over the controls. Jenkins spun the .50 cal into action, stitching the rocks with heavy fire. It was useless. The kill zone was perfect. Hayes fumbled for the radio, barking for air support, his voice shaking. Soldiers fired blind, rounds ricocheting off rock. Panic was setting in, and then Elena changed. Her grip on the M4 shifted from rigid to lethal. Breathing slowed, eyes sharpened. She wasn't the stiff, quiet liaison from Bagram anymore. She was something else. I'm moving the flank, she said, voice calm, almost cold. Stay in the vehicle. Hayes barked, but she was already gone. She hit the dirt with the fluidity of someone who had done this 1,000 times. Her body melting into the broken terrain. Jenkins caught sight of her for half a second, and his jaw hung open. This wasn't the paper soldier clumsily ducking fire. She moved like water running downhill. Every depression in the earth, every boulder, every fold in the land became cover. Her shadow slid along the valley floor, then vanished. The sniper never saw her. She came up from his blind side, climbing rock in a silent rhythm, hands and boots finding holds without hesitation. He was focused on the convoy below, working his bolt action, lining up his next shot. The knife slid in between his third and fourth ribs, upward, toward the heart. He didn't make a sound. She eased him down, eyes already scanning for the next target. His Dragunov was warm in her hands. She chambered around and scoped the far ridge. 3 more shooters, 2 RPG teams, 4 riflemen trading fire with the pinned convoy. She began removing them, one by one. The first, a machine gunner, dropped at 600 meters. The second, his spotter, slumped before he even knew the shot had been fired. In less than 2 minutes, half the ambush force was gone. She moved again, fast, changing positions before anyone could trace her muzzle flash. The third shot caught an RPG gunner mid-load, dropping him and his assistant in the same heartbeat. The insurgents began to lose cohesion. Discipline bled into panic. Fighters abandoned their carefully chosen positions to hunt the shadow picking them apart. She let them. 2 came for her. Circling wide, she caught them from behind. The knife went into the first man's kidney, her body pivoting with his fall so she could put 2 suppressed pistol rounds into his partner's chest before he hit them. Ground, By the time she returned to the convoy, the fight was over. The Humvees were pockmarked with rounds, the air still hazy with burned powder. Jenkins was staring at her from the gunner's hatch. Not speaking, Hayes looked pale. Radio still in hand. How did you? Jenkins started, but trailed off when he met her eyes. She cleaned her blade on a rag, every movement deliberate. You pick things up, she said softly. The darkness in her gaze was harder to look at than the blood on her. Uniform. The convoy limped back to base. 2 wounded, 1 serious but stable. No one said much on the ride. Elena watched the ridges pass through the armored glass, wondering how long she could keep the mask in place. 3 weeks passed. The jokes were gone. No more paper soldier in the mess hall. Now, people made room for her without being told. Hayes took her suggestions in patrol briefings, though he pretended they were his ideas. She didn't correct them, still. They watched her when she wasn't looking. How she cleaned her rifle like it was a ritual. How she could strip an AK blindfolded. How she never seemed to sleep. Some of them started dreaming about her eyes. The market in Colino was supposed to be easy. A presence patrol. Show the flag, meet the merchants. Collect chatter. Elena was looking at carpets with Sergeant Williams when the fruit vendors. Stall exploded. The blast threw her and Williams to the ground. Shrapnel whined overhead. Civilians screamed, scattering. From the rooftops came the staccato bark of a K-fire. From the alleys, the heavier thud of a PKM. Williams shouted into his radio. Ambush. Multiple shooters. But his voice was almost drowned by the chaos. Across the square, Martinez screamed, hit in the shoulder, spinning before collapsing behind a stack of grain sacks. Blood poured through his fingers. The space around him was open ground, swept by machine gun fire. We need to get to Martinez. Williams yelled, but his eyes said he knew it was suicide. Elena moved before he could stop her. She vaulted the barrier in one smooth motion. 30 meters of open ground lay ahead, bullets kicking up dust at her heels. She wove between cover. That shouldn't have been enough, but somehow was. 2 insurgents rounded a corner, rifles already coming up. Her pistol appeared in her hand like it had always been there. 2 shots, 2 bodies down. Another burst tore splinters from the crates near her head, but she was already pulling Martinez into cover, his weight heavy against her shoulder. That's when it happened. Her sleeve caught on a jagged edge of metal tore from wrist to elbow. Major Rodriguez, crouched behind an overturned vehicle across the square, had binoculars up. He froze. The scars were too uniform to be random. Dozens of small tally marks etched into the skin of her forearm. He counted, without meaning to, 47. He had seen those marks before, not on her, but on other people, the kind who came back from places they couldn't talk about, carrying darkness like it was part of their blood. The firefight dragged on for another 20 minutes. Elena's hand signals cut through the noise, her orders clean, precise. The squad moved as though she'd been their CO for years. When it was over, 12 insurgents lay dead. Elena accounted for 6, 2 wounded on their side, Martinez and Chun, who'd taken shrapnel. Back at base, Rodriguez found her in the medical tent, helping with Martinez's bandage. Her sleeve was patched now, the scars hidden. Sergeant Vasquez, he said quietly, walk with me. She looked at him for a moment and nodded. They didn't speak until his office door was shut and the white noise generator was on. She stood at attention, but something about her posture had shifted. Those weren't self-harm scars. Rodriguez said those were tallies. Silence. I don't know what you mean, sir, she said at last, but her voice didn't have much conviction. He opened a file from his desk. Staff Sergeant Elena Maria Vasquez, born in El Paso, enlisted at 18, top 5% at Ranger School. He looked up, 3 years of nothing. No unit listed, no deployment records. Just a note that you were attached to special operations for training purposes. She didn't move. Delta Force, he said. How long? Her eyes stayed on him, weighing, calculating. Then, slowly, she rolled up her sleeve. The marks covered her forearm, some white and faded, some pink and fresh. 6 of them clearly new. 3 years, she said finally. Counter-terrorism ops. Syria, Somalia, Yemen. Places that don't officially exist. Each marks a confirmed kill. Leaders, bomb makers, weapons dealers. People you'll never read about because they died before they could kill hundreds more. Why leave Delta? Her laugh was hollow, because I was starting to enjoy it. The hunt, the moment they know it's over. I was afraid of what I was becoming. She touched one of the new scars without looking at it. Old habits die hard. Rodriguez leaned back, studying her. So I've been commanding a weapon with a conscience. No, sir, she said quietly. You've been commanding the monster they built to hunt other monsters. The only difference is I'm still deciding when to take the shot. The intel report hit Rodriguez's desk at 3 o'clock hours. The comms specialist who delivered it looked like he'd been ordered to handle live explosives. Rodriguez read it once, then again. His coffee cooled, untouched, high-value target. Abdul Rashid. Nazir, known bomb maker. 17 IED attacks. 43 coalition dead. Planning something worse. A coordinated strike on the girls' school in Kalino. 300 children, ages 6 to 16. Class resumed in 18 hours. Rodriguez stared at the satellite photos. Nazir's compound was a fortress. High walls, overlapping fields of fire. Guard towers manned by professionals. 20. Armed men, at least. Air support wouldn't guarantee they got him before he could trigger whatever hell he'd prepared. By the time Rodriguez left his office, he knew exactly where to find her. The armory was dim, lit only by a single lamp over the bench. Elena sat in its halo, her hands moving with slow, deliberate precision over a rifle that didn't belong to. The U.S. Army inventory, carbon fiber stock, custom suppressor. Every piece engineered for a single purpose, to make the farthest shot count. She didn't look up. You heard? Word travels, he said. Fast. She slid the bolt home. The sound was quiet, but final. 300 kids, Major. That's a lot of innocent blood. Rodriguez nodded toward the rifle. Where'd you get that? Some things you don't turn in when you leave Delta, she said without breaking her rhythm. Macmillan TAC-50, effective to 2,000 meters, in the right hands. And yours are the right hands, he said. She met his eyes then. And something inside him tightened. It wasn't arrogance. It was hunger. The kind predators have when they've been caged too long. Major, I can get in. Take Nazir and his inner circle, and be back before dawn. The question isn't if I can do it. It's whether you'll let me. This isn't sanctioned, he said. If you're caught or killed, the army disavows. You'll be another rogue soldier. Her mouth curved, but there was no humor in... It wouldn't be the first time? He hesitated. You left this life. You said you were afraid of what you were becoming. I was, she said. But sometimes the monster you're trying to bury is the only thing standing between the innocent and the fire. She glanced at the photo of the school on his desk. Those kids don't deserve to die because I'm having an identity crisis. 10 minutes later, she was geared up. Tactical vest loaded. Sidearm checked. NVGs mounted. Rifle slung across her back. The paper soldier was gone. Wraith was walking out the door. The compound lay in a shallow valley, its pale walls ghostly under the moon. From her ridge vantage, Elena counted guards, traced patrol routes, marked where their vision overlapped and where it didn't. The direct approach was suicide, which was why she didn't take it. She moved like smoke through the dark, shadows folding around her. Scaling the outer wall was silent work. Careful hands on cold stone. The rooftop sentry died without knowing she was there. Her knife sliding in under his jaw, she lowered him gently, eyes already on the next target. The generator guard went next. She took his radio. Listening to chatter in clipped dialects, mapping their timing in her head. Nazir was in the central building, 2 bodyguards at the door. The first died through the window, a suppressed subsonic round punching through glass and skull. The second spun, weapon half raised, before her blade cut his throat. She stepped over him and into the room. Nazir looked up from the table. Blueprints for the school spread under his hands. His eyes widened. "You know who I am?" she asked in perfect Arabic. He nodded. His hand twitched toward the detonator. Her sidearm was already out. 2 rounds to the chest. The detonator clattered harmlessly to the floor. She didn't stop there. 6 other men in the compound were on the HVT list. Lieutenants, bomb specialists. She hunted them room by room. Some never woke. Others saw her and understood instantly what was coming. None survived. By the time the alarm finally screamed, 12 men were dead. She was already leaving. The eastern sky was pale when she walked back into the armory. Rodriguez was waiting, along with Jenkins and 2 others. They didn't say a word as she stripped her gear and began cleaning the rifle. "Is it done?" Rodriguez asked. She nodded, rolled up her sleeve, picked up a small knife with steady hands. She carved 6 new marks into her forearm. "Confirmed?" Rodriguez said. 12 kills, she answered. Nazir, his whole command, the schools. Safe. Jenkins stared, pale. "Jesus Christ, Elena, how many people have you killed?" 53 confirmed, she said. 4 years of operations, terrorists, bomb makers, people who don't get to hurt kids anymore. He swallowed. "Paper soldier?" She stood, shouldering the rifle. "No, Corporal, I'm the monster." That keeps the real monsters away from your families, and as long as there are people like Nazir in this world. She glanced at the new marks. "I'll keep adding." She walked out into the dawn. The base didn't talk about the Nazir mission. Not officially. Not in reports. Not even in the mess hall. But the absence of words said more than the details ever could. Men who had mocked her 3 weeks ago now moved aside in silence when she passed. They didn't avoid her out of dislike anymore. It was something heavier, like sailors stepping around a loaded cannon on a ship in rough water. Hayes had stopped challenging her in briefings. He still ran them, but everyone knew the real decisions were in the quiet nods he gave when her eyes met his across the table. She didn't ask for the authority. It just settled on her shoulders, like the weight of her rifle. Rodriguez kept his distance. Not because he feared her, though he should have, but because he was wrestling with the truth she had forced him to see, that the most dangerous thing under his command was also the most necessary. Elena felt the shift everywhere in Howe. Jenkins, who used to smirk at her, now watched her with something close to reverence. And Hal Williams, who could bench press a Humvee, glanced at her hands when she cleaned her blade, as though wondering what they'd feel like if they turned on him. They didn't understand. They saw the outcome. The safe school, the mission, accomplished, and thought it was strength. They didn't see the part where she stood alone afterward, rolling her sleeve up in the dark, marking her arm and feeling the skin fight the blade because it didn't want another tally. She told herself the marks were for accountability, that if the number ever got too high, she'd stop. But deep down, she knew the truth. Each scar was a reminder that once, in that moment, she had been exactly what the world needed her to be, no matter the cost to herself. 2 weeks after Nazir, the orders came in. A joint patrol with Afghan army through a cluster of villages where insurgent presence was rumored, but unconfirmed. Hayes briefed it like a routine sweep. Elena knew. Better. Unconfirmed meant someone had already spotted something. They just didn't want to put it in writing yet. The convoy moved out under a white-hot morning sun. The villages sat low in the dust, houses stacked from mud brick, doors open to catch any scrap of breeze. It was quiet, too quiet. Children peeked from behind walls. Women in scarves moved quickly. From doorway to doorway, no one lingered in the open. Jenkins muttered from the gunner's seat. "I don't like it." Neither did she. Her eyes traced the rooftops, the alleys. The angles where a man with an RPG could melt into shadow. She kept her rifle low but ready. The squad fanned out in textbook formation. The Afghan soldiers were less disciplined, drifting closer to the Americans than doctrine advised. They made it halfway through the second village before she saw it. A glint, just like in the valley 3 weeks ago. Not metal this time. Glass. The corner of a pane in a window where the frame should have been dark. Her voice cut across the radio. All units, eyes up. Building 2 o'clock. Second floor. The first shot cracked before she finished. It hit an Afghan soldier in the chest, spinning him into the dust. Then the rooftops erupted. Automatic fire poured down. The street turned into a cage of ricochets and flying grit. Hayes started shouting orders. But the squad was already moving on instinct. Elena dove behind a wall, glass exploding above her as rounds tore through. She counted the angles. 3 shooters on the roofline, 2 more in the building with the sniper. She could take them if she moved fast, but the street was a kill zone. William's voice broke over the comms. "We're pinned. We need a flank." She was already gone. She moved through back alleys, vaulting low walls, sliding into shadow before each corner. The heat pressed down like a hand on the back of her neck. Her breathing was steady, controlled. Every inhale matched to her steps. A boy no older than 12 froze in a doorway as she passed. His eyes were wide, but he didn't speak. She gave him a small shake of her head. Stay inside, and kept moving. She reached the rear of the sniper's building and slipped inside. The first floor was empty. The second wasn't. 2 men crouched by the window, their rifles trained on the street below. She shot the first in the temple. The second turned, mouth open, and her knife went in under his ribs. From their position, she could see the whole street and the rooftops where the others were dug in. She dropped to prone, lined up the shot, and started clearing the roof. 1, 2, 3. By the time she rejoined the squad, the street was quiet except for the ringing in their ears. Back at the base, Hayes clapped her on the shoulder. "Nice work, Sergeant." She didn't answer. Her mind was still in that upstairs room, seeing the boy in the doorway, wondering if in 5 years he'd be the one behind the rifle. That night, she sat outside her tent, knife in hand, staring at her forearm. She didn't carve a mark for today. She told herself it was because none of the men she killed had been confirmed HVTs, but she knew it was because adding a mark for them felt too easy. Sometimes, she thought, the hardest kills are the ones you don't count. Cole came back 2 weeks later. No warning, no orders, no official record of his arrival. He was just there, leaning in the shade outside the command tent, gear stripped down, rifle slung like it belonged there more than he did. Rodriguez didn't like it, neither did she. "Got a job," he said when she walked past. "Rodriguez says you're coming with me." She stopped. "And if I say no?" He smiled without warmth. "Then he sends you anyway. But I'd rather you want to." The target was a man named Dastan Kadir, a mid-level insurgent commander with a taste for publicity. The kind who filmed his ambushes and sent them to sympathetic media across the border. Officially, their mission was to capture him alive. Unofficially, Cole's tone made it clear, alive was optional. They would go in as a 2-man team, no convoy, no backup, just them, their rifles, and the night. The village where Kadir was hiding lay in a dry river valley, the houses clinging to the banks like they were afraid of sliding into the dust. They moved in after midnight, staying low, letting the wind mask their footsteps. Cole led, his movements so precise they might as well have been rehearsed. She followed, eyes tracking shadows, counting the seconds between each sentry's turn. Of the head, they found Kadir's house, bigger than the others. 2 stories, a satellite dish rusting on the roof. Through the second-floor window, she could see him, sitting cross-legged, talking to a younger man who kept glancing at the door like he expected it to burst open. She and Cole settled into position on an adjacent rooftop. Clean shot, Cole murmured. That's not the mission. She replied. You think he's coming quietly? Cole's smile was like the scrape of a blade. You know better. She kept her scope steady. We take him alive, Rodriguez will want him talking. Cole didn't move for a long time. Then he lowered his rifle. Fine, you go in. I'll cover. The breach was silent. Glass cutter on the back window. Boots landing soft on the floorboards. She was halfway up the stairs when the younger man spotted her. His eyes went wide, and he reached for an AK. 2 suppressed shots dropped him. Kadir froze. Then, slowly, he raised his hands. American, he said in a thick accent. She cuffed him, patted him down, and pushed him toward the stairs. That was when the first shot cracked. It came from behind them, from outside. The round punched through Kadir's chest, sending him to his knees. She spun, heart hammering, and caught sight of Cole on the rooftop opposite, rifle still raised. By the time she got outside, he was gone. The extraction bird came 30 minutes. Later, she rode back in silence, Kadir's blood drying on her gloves. Rodriguez met her on the pad, eyes scanning her face for answers. Cole? He asked. She didn't answer. That night, she sat in the armory long after lights out, her rifle broken down on the bench. The pieces lay in neat rows, her hands hovering over them without moving. She thought about the way Kadir's eyes had widened when he realized she wasn't going to kill him, the half-second of relief before Cole's round found him. She thought about how part of her understood exactly why Cole had done it. And that was what scared her. She didn't mark her arm for Kadir, not because he didn't count, but because she wasn't sure whose mark it would be, hers or Cole's. For the first time in a long time, she wondered if there would come a day when she'd stop caring about the difference. Cole came back 2 weeks later. No warning, no orders, no official record of his arrival. He was just there, leaning in the shade outside the command tent, gear stripped down, rifle slung like it belonged there more than he did. Rodriguez didn't like it, neither did she. Got a job, he said when she walked past. Rodriguez says you're coming with me. She stopped. And if I say no? He smiled without warmth. Then he sends you anyway. But I'd rather you want to. The target was a man named Dastan Kadir, a mid-level insurgent commander with a taste for publicity, the kind who filmed his ambushes and sent them to sympathetic media across the border. Officially, their mission was to capture him alive. Unofficially, Cole's tone made it clear alive was optional. They would go in as a 2-man team, no convoy, no backup. Just them, their rifles, and the night. The village where Kadir was hiding lay in a dry river valley, the houses clinging to the banks like they were afraid of sliding into the dust. They moved in after midnight, staying low, letting the wind mask their footsteps. Cole led, his movements so precise they might as well have been rehearsed. She followed, eyes tracking shadows, counting the seconds between each sentry's turn. Of the head, they found Kadir's house, bigger than the others, 2 stories, a satellite dish resting on the roof. Through the second-floor window, she could see him, sitting cross-legged, talking to a younger man who kept glancing at the door like he expected it to burst open. She and Cole settled into position on an adjacent rooftop. Clean shot, Cole murmured. That's not the mission, she replied. You think he's coming quietly? Cole's smile was like the scrape of a blade. You know better. She kept her scope steady. We take him alive. Rodriguez will want him talking. Cole didn't move for a long time. Then he lowered his rifle. Fine. You go in. I'll cover. The breach was silent. Glass cutter on the back window. Boots landing soft on the floorboards. She was halfway up the stairs when the younger man spotted her. His eyes went wide, and he reached for an AK. 2 suppressed shots dropped him. Kadir froze. Then, slowly, he raised his hands. American, he said, in a thick accent. She cuffed him, patted him down, and pushed him toward the stairs. That was when the first shot cracked. It came from behind them, from outside. The round punched through Kadir's chest, sending him to his knees. She spun, heart hammering, and caught sight of Cole on the rooftop opposite, rifle still raised. By the time she got outside, he was gone. The extraction bird came 30 minutes. Later, she rode back in silence, Kadir's blood drying on her gloves. Rodriguez met her on the pad, eyes scanning her face for answers. "Cole?" he asked. She didn't answer. That night, she sat in the armory long after lights out, her rifle broken down on the bench. The pieces lay in neat rows, her hands hovering over them without moving. She thought about the way Kadir's eyes had widened when he realized she wasn't going to kill him, the half-second of relief before Cole's round found him. She thought about how part of her understood exactly why Cole had done it. And that was what scared her. She didn't mark her arm for Kadir, not because he didn't count, but because she wasn't sure whose mark it would be, hers or Cole's, for the first time in a long time. She wondered if there would come a day when she'd stop caring about the difference. The next time she saw Cole, it wasn't in the shadows. It was in Rodriguez's office. The door was shut, the air thick, the blinds drawn. Cole stood against the wall, arms crossed, the kind of posture that said he didn't need a chair. Rodriguez didn't bother with pleasantries. "Join up. High-value meeting in the Tangi Pass. Multiple insurgent cell leaders in one place. If we hit them, it cuts their operational reach in the region by half." Elena's eyes flicked between them. "And the catch?" Rodriguez's jaw tightened. "Cole has his orders. You have yours. You're going in together." She didn't look at Cole. "My orders? Capture if possible, kill if necessary." Cole's smirk was a blade. "Guess which one I'm betting on." The pass was a narrow scar in the mountains, the road twisting like it was trying to hide from the sky. They moved in under cover of darkness, the squad leapfrogging positions until they had the compound in sight. From their vantage, Elena counted 6 armed men outside, 2 on the roof, and who knew how many inside. Cole crouched beside her. "We going hard. No survivors." That's not what Rodriguez said. Cole's tone was almost gentle. "You think these guys will give you a second chance if they walk out of here breathing? They'll rebuild. They always do." She checked her rifle. "We do it my way." The breach was surgical. Williams and Jenkins took the outer guards, suppressors whispering in the dark. Elena cleared the roof with 2 clean shots before moving to the door. Inside was chaos. Shouts in Pashto, the thud of boots on stairs. She moved like she'd been built for the space, rifle snapping from target to target. The squad covering angles without needing to speak. They found the meeting in a back room. 4 men around a low table, maps and cash scattered between them. "Hands!" She barked in Arabic. They froze. For a second, it was working. Then Cole stepped past her and put 2 rounds into the nearest man's chest. The room erupted. One of the leaders lunged for a pistol. She dropped him before he could fire. Williams took down another in the doorway, but Cole wasn't aiming to subdue. Every shot he fired was a kill shot. "Cole, stand down." She shouted over the gunfire. He didn't even look at her. "This is the only way it ends." The last man standing was barely 20, thin, wide-eyed, hands shaking above his head. Cole leveled his rifle. She moved before she could think. Her shoulder slammed into him, driving the barrel skyward. The shot went into the ceiling. Cole pivoted, bringing the rifle down toward her, but she was already inside his guard. The fight was short, brutal. He was strong, but she was faster, and she'd been watching him since the day they met. She trapped his arm, twisted, and sent his rifle clattering across the floor. When she had him pinned, their eyes locked. His were calm, almost curious. "You're not willing to do what it takes," he said quietly. "Maybe not," she replied. "But I'm still standing." They exfiltrated with 2 prisoners, the young one and a man with a shattered arm from Williams' fire. Cole walked out on his own, silent, but there was a look in his eyes that told her this wasn't over. Back at Kestrel, the squad didn't ask questions. not directly. But Jenkins watched her differently now. Like he knew the fight with Cole hadn't been about tactics. That night, Rodriguez found her outside, sitting on a crate, forearm bare in the moonlight. The marks caught the pale glow like scars carved into stone. "You could have killed him," Rodriguez said. She didn't look up. "I still might." It happened 3 nights later. No orders, no mission, no warning. She woke to the sound of boots on gravel outside her tent. Slow, deliberate steps that stopped just short of the flap. Her hand was already on the pistol, under her pillow, when his voice came through the canvas. "Time to finish it, Cole." She stepped out into the pale wash of the moon, boots crunching on the packed dirt around them. FOB Kestrel slept, generators humming, a dog barking somewhere near the wire. "You came back," she said. "You knew I would," he replied. "You took something from me in that room. You made me choose restraint. That doesn't work for me." Her eyes swept the shadows beyond him. "No backup. Just him. This doesn't have to happen," she said. His smile was thin. "It does, because one day you'll stop pretending you're different from me. And when that happens, I want to be the one standing across from you." They moved without a signal. He was on her in 2 steps, rifle swinging low like a club. She ducked, the stock passing close enough to ruffle her hair, and drove her elbow into his ribs. He grunted but didn't slow. The fight was nothing like the clean surgical operations they'd run together. This was ugly. Boots in the dirt, fists in the dark, each of them trading blows that left no room for words. He was strong, relentless. She was faster, sharper. Every strike was calculated. Every movement meant to end it. Finally, she caught his arm mid-swing, twisted, and sent his knife skittering across the ground. They froze like that, her knee pressing into his chest, the barrel of her sidearm against his temple. His breath came steady. Do it. She didn't, not because he didn't deserve it, but because killing him would have been too easy. Instead, she lowered the pistol, stepped back, and let him see the choice for what it was. "You're wrong," she said. "I don't stop pretending because it's not pretending. I'm not you." He pushed himself up, wiping blood from his lip. "Keep telling yourself that." Then he turned and walked into the shadows beyond the wire, swallowed by the night. The squad heard about it in pieces. Jenkins caught sight of her bruised knuckles in the mess hall. Williams noticed the way her sidearm was missing a single round. None of them asked outright, but later, as they sat cleaning weapons before a patrol, Jenkins finally broke the silence. "So, Cole's gone?" She didn't look up from her rifle. For now, was he like you? Her hands paused for just a second. "No, he was what I'd be if I stopped caring." That night, she walked the perimeter alone. The air was cold, the desert stretching endless and silent beyond the wire. She rolled her sleeve back, looking at the scars. 53 marks, each one a weight she carried by choice. Cole would keep hunting his way. She would keep hunting hers. And somewhere between those 2 lines, the world might just stay intact. A little longer, because sometimes the only thing that keeps the worst people alive long enough to face justice is someone even worse who still knows where the line is. She pulled her sleeve down, turned back toward the light of the base, and kept walking. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. And in the silence of the Afghan night, the paper soldier was long gone, but the weapon she chose to be was still out there.